The Nile flows, ancient as time itself, yet beneath its tranquil surface there echoes a story older than stone. A story of kingship and betrayal, of gods born of sky and earth, of powers stolen, restored, and tested in courts not of men, but of deities. What happens when a throne is more than timber and gold, when it belongs to immortals? What ripples in the heavens when order is challenged by chaos? And how does the contest of gods still live in the hearts of kings, and in the beliefs of empires long crumbled? Meet Osiris, god of the dead, of fertility, of rebirth. His sister wife Isis, whose magic binds flesh, whose love rekindles life. Seth, brother and adversary, storm god, usurper, the bringer of disorder. Their child, Horus, destined to reclaim what was lost, even as the gods themselves contest his claim. We will witness betrayal, dismemberment, resurrection. Courtroom dramas before the divine, shape-shifting duels, the theft of eyes, 80 years of strife for the throne of Egypt. If tales of ancient power, myth, and the weight of eternity stir your soul, subscribe now. We will walk through documented sources, tomb inscriptions, papyri, stelae, to bring these gods, their conflicts, and their legacy into sharp light. Egyptian mythology is not mere folklore. It is a record of the eternal, cosmic dramas written in stone, spoken in hymns, and enacted in rituals for over 3,000 years. To the people of the Nile, these were not tales of imagination, but truths of existence. They explained life and death, kingship and justice, chaos and order. And at the center of them all, the war for the throne of Egypt. Osiris, eldest son of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, became king of Egypt. He was the god of the afterlife, of order, of vegetation and renewal. His reign brought abundance. The Nile's floods were seen as his lifeblood, sustaining the land. To Egyptians, Osiris embodied balance, the perfect king, the just ruler, the eternal promise that life could return after death. By his side stood Isis, his wife and sister, goddess of magic, motherhood, and protection. Isis was worshipped for her unshakable devotion, her mastery of healing and enchantment. She was the archetype of motherly love, the force that held family, kingdom, and cosmos together. Without her, resurrection itself would be unthinkable. Yet not all children of Geb and Nut brought harmony. Seth, brother to Osiris, embodied storms, deserts, and disorder. His power was chaos itself, the untamed violence of sandstorms, the howl of the desert wind, the terror of foreign invasions. To Egyptians, Seth was necessary, but dangerous, a reminder that without vigilance, order could collapse. From Osiris and Isis came Horus, the falcon-headed god. Horus was more than a son. He was the rightful heir, the living embodiment of kingship. To look upon a pharaoh was, in truth, to see Horus himself, a divine ruler maintaining balance, defending Mat, the eternal order of the universe. The Nile itself was the stage for these cosmic struggles. Its floods, its fertile banks, its endless flow, all seen as reflections of divine battles. The throne of Egypt was never just a seat of earthly power. It was the pivot between order and chaos, the living bond between the gods and humanity. For every pharaoh who ruled Egypt, the story of Horus and Seth was more than myth. It was a legacy. Each king was Horus reborn, inheritor of a throne once won through blood and trial. Each ruler was measured against that eternal struggle to defend order, to uphold Mat, to resist chaos. And so, the war for the throne of Egypt was not just told, but lived. A divine conflict carved into eternity, where betrayal, resurrection, and vengeance would shape the destiny of gods and of a nation. Egypt knew a golden age under the rule of Osiris. As king, Osiris brought harmony between gods, earth, and men. He taught agriculture, the ways of cultivation, and the mysteries of civilization. To his people, every flood of the Nile was Osiris's gift, every sprouting field his blessing. Under his reign, Order prevailed, Mat was strong, and prosperity flowed across the two lands. But not all in the divine household accepted Osiris's rule. His brother, Seth, lord of the desert and storms, looked upon Osiris with envy. Where Osiris ruled fertile lands, Seth's domain was barren sand. Where Osiris was beloved, Seth was feared. His heart burned with resentment, for he felt overshadowed, denied the throne that should have been his. And so, ambition grew, an ambition that would end in blood. They were the children of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. 4 siblings, bound by blood, yet divided by destiny. Osiris, the king, Isis, his queen, whose magic bound life itself. Seth, the restless brother, bringer of disorder. And Nephthys, the sister who moved between loyalty and loss. In their union lay the foundation of Egypt, but in their conflict lay its greatest myth, the war for the throne. Seth's jealousy ripened into a plot. Some accounts say he built a chest, crafted with cunning precision, promising it to whichever guest could fit perfectly inside. At a great banquet, Osiris, or unsuspecting, trusting, lay within it. At that moment, Seth and his followers sealed the chest shut, poured molten lead upon it, and cast it into the Nile. Osiris, the just king, was murdered by his own brother. But Seth was not content with murder. He tore the body of Osiris apart, dismembering him into pieces, scattering them across Egypt, so no resurrection could be possible. The Nile, once the symbol of life, now carried the remains of its king. The throne of Egypt, once secure, was shaken by blood and betrayal. Yet the story of Osiris did not end in the waters of the Nile. His queen, Isis, would not allow death to claim him forever. Armed with devotion and the power of magic, she began her quest. The war for the throne of Egypt had only begun. After the murder of Osiris, grief swept through Egypt, but Isis, queen and goddess of magic, refused to surrender him to oblivion. She set out across the two lands, traveling the length of the Nile, guided by love and divine will. In every shrine, every marsh, every fragment of story, she searched for the body of her king. With the help of her sister Nephthys, Isis gathered the scattered parts of Osiris, piece by piece, from the delta to the far south. Where each part was found, shrines were raised, binding memory to landscape. But one piece, his phallus, was lost to the Nile, consumed by fish. Even incomplete, Isis resolved that Osiris must live again. Through rituals of mourning and words of power, Isis breathed life back into her husband. In this moment, Osiris returned, not to rule the earth, but to reign over the underworld. His resurrection was not final, yet it was enough for destiny to unfold. From this union of death and magic, a child was conceived. Horus, falcon god, son of Osiris and Isis, born after his father's death. His birth was more than a miracle. It was prophecy fulfilled. For in Horus, Osiris's bloodline lived on, and through him, the throne of Egypt would one day be reclaimed. To protect him from Seth's wrath, Isis hid Horus in the marshes of the Nile Delta. There, surrounded by reeds and waters, she raised him in secrecy. In tales, Isis shielded her son from venomous snakes, scorpions, and wild beasts, healing him with her spells when danger struck. The boy grew under the protection of his mother's magic, his destiny sealed, vengeance for his father, and justice for Egypt. While Isis guarded her son, Seth ruled Egypt. His throne was built on violence and fear. Order was broken, Mat weakened. The fertile lands trembled under chaos, and the people looked back to the time of Osiris with longing. For 80 years, Seth's shadow stretched across the land, unchecked, until the son of Osiris came of age. Years later, from the marshes, a falcon spread its wings. Horus, son of Osiris, heir to the throne, had come of age, and he would not rest until his father's murder was avenged, and order restored to Egypt. Horus, grown to strength and wisdom, challenged Seth for the throne of Egypt. Their battles shook the two lands, fierce and unrelenting. In hand-to-hand combat, god against god, falcon against storm, they wrestled upon the sands and the sacred courts. Neither yielded, each strike echoing the clash of divine destiny. Their conflict was not bound to flash alone. The gods transformed, shifting their forms into beasts of fury. Seth became a raging lion, a monstrous boar, a wild hippopotamus thrashing in the waters. Horus soared as a falcon, striking with talons sharp as blades. Each form tested the other's strength, each clash a trial of endurance. The Nile itself became their battlefield. Horus and Seth plunged into its waters, transformed into mighty hippos. 4 days, they wrestled beneath the waves, their struggle churning the river into storms. The people looked on in awe, the fate of Egypt hidden beneath the dark currents. At last, Isis intervened, casting nets to restrain Seth, yet her mercy, shown even to her enemy, drove Horus to fury. Seth was cunning, as well as strong. Through trickery he sought to humiliate his nephew, weaving schemes of betrayal. In one tale, he attempted to corrupt Horus through vile deception, plotting to prove him unworthy of kingship. Yet Isis, wise and resourceful, countered Seth's schemes with her own wit, exposing his lies before the council of the gods. In one violent clash, Seth tore out Horus's eye, a wound that seemed beyond repair. Yet the god Thoth, lord of wisdom and writing, restored it. From that healing was born a symbol, the Eye of Horus, or Udjat. It became the emblem of wholeness, protection, and divine balance, inscribed upon amulets and tombs for generations to come. The eye that was wounded became the eye that heals. The duels alone could not decide the victor. The gods themselves gathered in council, presided over by Ra the sun god, and Thoth the divine scribe. Seth argued his strength entitled him to rule, while Horus claimed his rights as the son of Osiris. 4 days, even years, the gods debated, the balance of mat hanging in their judgment. Yet no decision was reached. The feud was too great, the destinies too entwined. The war raged on, neither side triumphant. Battles of strength, cunning, and judgment stretched into decades. For 80 years, the struggle of Horus and Seth scarred Egypt, a divine conflict that would echo through eternity. The throne remained contested, the gods divided, and the final verdict yet to be delivered. For 80 years, the war dragged on, contest after contest, duel after duel. Sometimes Horus triumphed, sometimes Seth. The gods themselves grew weary of the conflict. The throne of Egypt remained unclaimed, suspended between order and chaos. The people of Egypt prayed for resolution, their rituals echoing the cosmic struggle in heaven. At last, the gods convened for a final trial. Ra, the sun god, presided. Thoth, lord of wisdom, inscribed every word. Isis spoke for her son Horus, reminding the council that he was the true heir of Osiris. Seth, standing proud, demanded recognition of his strength, insisting that only power could secure Egypt's throne. The assembly of gods listened as heaven and earth held its breath. In the end, it was Mat that decided the outcome. Order over chaos, justice over force, balance over tyranny. The gods declared Horus the rightful ruler of Egypt. His birthright, as the son of Osiris, could not be denied. The crown was placed upon his head, the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, uniting the land once more. The throne, stained by betrayal and war, was restored to its true heir. And what of Seth? He was not destroyed, for chaos cannot be erased from the cosmos. Instead, he was subdued. Some traditions tell he was forced to live in the desert, stripped of his claim to kingship. Others say Ra commanded him to guard the solar bark, fighting the great serpent Apophis in the eternal night. Seth's strength was not wasted, but redirected, bound to service rather than rule. With the verdict delivered, Horus ascended as king. His triumph became the foundation of Egyptian kingship. Every pharaoh who ruled after him bore his name, claiming descent from the falcon god who restored Mat. The story of the 80-year war was preserved in hymns, carvings, and rituals, a warning and a promise. Chaos could never claim the throne, for order must prevail, and so the war for the throne of Egypt ended. Horus triumphed, Seth was subdued, and the balance of Mat was restored. Yet the presence of Seth, chaos, storms, disorder, reminds us still that balance is never permanent. It must be guarded, generation after generation. The gods settled their struggle, but the echoes of their war continue. In the very cycles of life, death, and rebirth, at its heart, the war between Horus and Seth is not just a family feud. It is the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Horus, the falcon soaring above the skies, embodies Mat, balance, law, and rightful kingship. Seth, lord of storms and deserts, represents Isfit, disorder, violence, and unpredictability. To the Egyptians, this was more than myth. It was a reflection of the cosmos itself. Just as the Nile brought life through its floods, the desert encroached with death. Balance was fragile, and only vigilance could preserve it. The death of Osiris and his resurrection by Isis carried profound meaning. Osiris did not return to rule the earth. Instead, he became king of the underworld. His rebirth marked not a second life, but a transformation. To the Egyptians, this was the promise of eternity. Death was not the end, but a gateway. The flooding of the Nile each year, the sowing and harvesting of crops, the rising and setting of the sun, all were seen as echoes of Osiris's death and renewal. His story became the very rhythm of life itself. The war for the throne also carried a political message. Every pharaoh of Egypt was declared to be Horus incarnate, the living falcon who defeated Seth and restored order. This was not mere symbolism, it was state ideology. By wearing the double crown, pharaohs embodied Horus's victory over Seth and his unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The myth legitimized rule, sanctified kingship, and reminded people that to challenge the pharaoh was to challenge cosmic order itself. The eye of Horus, torn out during battle with Seth and later healed, became a symbol more powerful than the war itself. To Egyptians, the eye represented protection, healing, and wholeness. Worn as amulets, painted on ships, inscribed in tombs, the eye of Horus guarded against harm. Its fractions even became part of their mathematics, representing parts of a whole. From battle wound to eternal emblem, the eye reminded them that even brokenness could be restored. The myth is preserved most vividly in a New Kingdom text known as the Contendings of Horus and Seth. On its fragile papyrus, we read how the gods debated, how Isis intervened, and how the struggle unfolded year after year. In temple inscriptions, especially at Edfu and Karmunbu, the story is retold in stone. For ancient Egyptians, myth and statecraft were one. These were not bedtime tales, but foundations of law, kingship, and identity. Egypt was not alone in preserving such stories. In Greece, Zeus overthrew the Titans to secure his throne on Olympus. In Norse myth, Odin fought giants in endless struggle to keep chaos at bay. Across cultures, we find this theme: order battling disorder, kingship legitimized through divine conflict. Yet Egypt's story stands apart, for theirs was not a final victory, but an eternal cycle. Seth remained, chaos never vanished, reminding all that order must be defended, always. And so the war for the throne of Egypt was more than a clash of gods. It was a map of the universe, a guide to kingship, and a mirror of life itself. But what does this story mean for us today? What can we, modern listeners, take from a struggle written in papyrus and carved into stone? More than 3,000 years ago, the war ended with Horus crowned king, Seth cast aside. But what if you were Horus? Would you have shown mercy to your uncle, or demanded vengeance for the murder of your father? This question is not confined to the myths of Egypt. It is a question of justice itself. How far should forgiveness reach? And when must balance be restored through punishment? Is order truly possible without chaos? the Egyptians understood that Seth could not be destroyed. He was too essential, a reminder that struggle sharpens strength, that storms give meaning to calm. In every age, we wrestle with the same truth. We long for peace, but it is challenge and conflict that shape destiny. The war for the throne of Egypt is not locked in the past. It echoes in our own world, in the rivalries of leaders, in the rise and fall of nations, in the betrayals between friends, and the choices we face in families, communities, and governments. Leadership, justice, betrayal, the cycles of power. These are as real now as they were on the banks of the Nile 3,000 years ago. So ask yourself, whose side would you take? Would you stand with Horus, the falcon who defends order, law, and kingship? Or with Seth, the untamed force of chaos, storms, and rebellion? Perhaps the truth is that both live within us, the desire for balance, and the fire of disruption. Each age, each person must choose which side will rule their throne. Comment below, whose side would you take in the war for the throne of Egypt? If ancient myths still fascinate you, make sure you like this video, share it with others who love history, and subscribe, because these stories are not just echoes of the past. They are guides for the present, and perhaps for the future. The war for the throne of Egypt was more than myth. It was a cosmic drama that explained life, death, and the fragile balance between order and chaos. Osiris fell, Isis restored, Horus rose, and Seth challenged, each playing their role in the eternal cycle that defined Egyptian thought. For the people of the Nile, these were not distant tales, but truths woven into the rhythm of their world. The legacy endured for thousands of years. Every pharaoh was Horus incarnate, the living falcon who defended order and kingship. Every temple carried the reminder that balance must be preserved, and at the heart of it all was Mat, truth, justice, harmony, the very foundation upon which Egypt survived. Without Mat, there could be no throne, no Egypt, no cosmos. The war for the throne was not just fought in myth. It is fought in every heart that weighs justice against desire. Would your heart balance on the scales of Mat? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with those who love history, and subscribe for more journeys into the myths that shaped our world.